Should I pay off my car loan or continue funding my emergency fund and savings goals? Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Money Anonymous. I'm Kira Jones, financial coach and founder of Financial Intervention Academy, here to answer your personal finance questions anonymously. And now on to today's question. I would love to have your opinion on my new change of direction for saving. I am very new, but jumped right in at the end of the year. I did my budget, created my envelopes, broke down my subscriptions, started a high yield savings account with a $3,000 emergency fund, and established many sinking funds. The only debt I have is my car, $6,324 at 1.9% interest. With paying the minimum payment of $436, it would be paid off June of 2025. I usually pay $450 to $500 each month and have also used my extra $2,000 earnings that I get every summer. I would love to pay this off by my birthday this May, which would be about $1,200 a month. While watching some videos today, the person mentioned to establish your emergency fund first, pay off debt second, and then establish sinking funds. So I'm wondering if I should save the money I'm putting into several of my discretionary sinking funds and just put them towards my car, since I already have my starter emergency fund. I would then restart the sinking funds in June. Am I thinking correctly, or should I still do them and just add a little extra to each car payment? So let's review what you've done so far. You created a budget, you reviewed your subscriptions, set up cash envelopes, sinking funds, and funded your emergency fund with $3,000. Wow, what a way to start off the new year. That's awesome. My first question would be, how did you celebrate that milestone? I'll cover more about this and why it's important later on in the video. But disclaimer time, most of what you find on the internet and many financial talking heads out there provide financial education. Even a lot of my own content is education and it's not coaching. Coaching is when you work with a professional to apply the knowledge in the best way for you. Your numbers and situation are completely unique to you and require more than a cookie cutter answer. Now to give you the cookie cutter answer and then try to approach your question like you would experience if you were a coaching client of mine. So first, you can't get any more cookie cutter than Dave Ramsey's baby steps. Dave's way would say that you take everything from your emergency fund except $1,000 and then all the savings in your sinking funds and just pay off that car immediately. Because then that'll free up the $436 a month of cash flow that you can use to then start replacing your emergency fund, building that 1,000 emergency fund back up to 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Sinking funds should be funded monthly as well, but more on that in a little bit. So that's the 7 baby steps. It's Dave Ramsey's method, and you don't deviate. You follow it to the letter. First, you save $1,000. That's your starter emergency fund. The second step is to pay off all debt but your house. Often this is the longest step. Step 3 is to build your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months worth of bare bones budgets. So that's just needs only, and have 3 to 6 months worth for a fully funded emergency fund. And now I know this is what Dave would say because I have not only followed his radio show, read his books, but my first coaching certification came from Ramsey Solutions. So you follow the baby steps exactly. But that's black and white thinking. That's either or. This is the way, the only way. And for every person and every situation, there's always a range of potential options, which is why coaching helps you figure out the option that's best for you. Dave sticks to his process because if you follow it, it does work for a lot of people, but it doesn't mean that it's the best path for everyone. And that's where coaching comes in with an array of different methodologies and processes and tools. And then we let the client decide which tool or process is right for them. And that's why Dave Ramsey is not a financial coach. He has a one-size-fits-all process, his program, the 7 baby steps, and that's the only approach that he promotes. Now, some other financial talking heads might suggest that you just keep paying your car payment. It's only 1.9% interest, which is super low, and you've already paid a bulk of that interest in the earlier years of the loan. So the thought there is just keep paying your minimum payment until your loan your maturity date, which is June of 2025. So use your current cash flow to keep funding the sinking funds and increase your emergency fund to 3 months worth of bare bones expenses, or 6 months, depending on how far your current $3,000 emergency fund can stretch. But use current cash flow to fund sinking funds. So more on contributing to the sinking funds in a little bit. But the idea is that you'd want to Just pay the car off when you pay it off. And right now, focus on taking your emergency fund to the next level. So both of these responses or any other response that prioritize one method over any other is not coaching. That's black and white thinking. That's either or thinking. So instead, a coaching approach might, approach this situation and would ask, how can we yes and this scenario? How can we pay off the car early and not dip into any savings funds? So if you were a coaching client of mine, we would start by thinking over some questions and scenarios. So let's start with the car itself. How does it make you feel when you make that car payment every month? And, it might sound like a silly question, but if, you have a lot of anxiety and that car stresses you out, then that's an obvious solution for me. Like, you're going to focus on the car first. How much is your car worth versus what you still owe on the loan? And you can easily find this information out with kellybluebook.com. You can look up the trade-in and the personal sale, the value of the vehicle. So, comparing that to what you still owe on it. How's the car running? Is it young with just needing its normal routine maintenance? Is it middle-aged, starting to have problems outside of normal maintenance? Or is it old and starting to have more expensive maintenance and issues? We'll first get some clarity about how you feel about the car and the loan. So now let's look at savings. Your emergency fund, $3,000, which is a great starter fund. Dave's recommendation for a starter fund is $1,000. So, how many months would that $3,000 last you? If that's only 1 month, then your next savings goal would be to build it to 3 months worth of expenses or $9,000. So you can kind of take here, a good, better, best situation with your emergency fund would be the starter emergency fund. That's 1 month. That's usually what I suggest, is to have 1 month worth of bare bones budget of expenses sitting there. That's the starter emergency fund. A better emergency fund would be to build it to 3 months worth of bare bones budget. And then the best emergency fund, 6 months of a bare bones budget. Now, however, I will say that due to the pandemic, a lot of people have shifted their recommendation and said, 6 to 12 months is more of a realistic emergency fund, especially if you have variable income. So speaking of that, do you have steady employment or do you have a variable income? If it's variable, you might want to prioritize building a 6-month emergency fund first. If you have reliable, consistent income, you could choose to focus all of your extra leverage to your auto loan since you already have that starter emergency fund and reliable employment and income. So next, I'd want to talk through what kinds of sinking funds you have set up. Do you have some set up for things like auto repairs or a new vehicle, annual subscriptions, insurance, health savings, home repairs, otherwise like the needs? And then do you have sinking funds set up for wants like vacations, kids' activities, tech upgrades, furniture upgrades, etc.? This is kind of missing some good information here from you in order to clarify like the amount in sinking funds and how much you contribute to that sinking funds monthly. So how many sinking funds are fully funded or close to it, meaning that you almost have enough set aside for said purchase? Could you set an initial sinking funds goal to fully fund 1 or 2 categories, like one need and one want? Do you know that you need tires soon? Do you really want to take that summer vacation? Maybe you prioritize funding those 2 funds in full. You fund them first, and then you can turn and start revving up your auto loan payoff goal. So now that we have a financial snapshot of your situation in this exact moment, I'd want to ask you, how do you feel about that auto loan? From your question, it sounds like you're eager to pay it off because you're excited about the prospect of being debt-free. So which do you feel is more important to you, being debt-free or having money in savings for those sinking funds? That's why I asked about the health of your vehicle. Is it getting older, having issues? You're afraid you won't pay off the loan before something major happens? Does making the payment every month just give you anxiety? Well, especially, if this is causing you stress, then I would suggest that you prioritize the stressful one first. Now that we've figured out how you feel about your debt versus savings and your tolerance for risk, like debt versus having no savings, let's see if there are other options to you besides either or. Can we yes and this? Can you pay off your car early and still contribute to your sinking funds or your emergency fund every month? So what would that look like? Overtime, side hustle, second job, cutting out more expenses, asking for a raise at work? How many different ways can you maximize your monthly leverage? And so when I say leverage, that's the cash flow to get shit done. Um, make it fun. For example, shoveling driveways since it's winter out. Maybe you could make it fun for the whole family. Someone goes knocking on the doors and seeing who wants. Everyone else jumps in and you plow out 4 or 5 driveways in a weekend. It could be, fun for the family. There are all kinds of creative ways to make a buck here or there. I've even had clients who are healthy with time available go donate plasma twice a week and make some pretty quick money for Christmas. Whatever you can do to build as much leverage in the shortest period of time will have you moving in the right direction. Can you use this time between now and your birthday in May to maximize your monthly leverage to fully fund a couple sinking funds and pay off the car loan? So if that's not possible and your car loan doesn't add major stress to your life, you'd just like to see it gone. Maybe the choice for you would be to focus on your emergency fund, the next level of it, and or just a few sinking funds. Now, I could go more into depth about these sinking funds if I had more information to go off of. But ideally, with sinking funds, you have a target date that you need these funds, like auto insurance that you pay every 6 months. If you pay $300 every 6 months, then you would need to put away $50 a month into your sinking fund so that it's there by the time your next premium is due. So if your sinking funds are set up right, then why the need to speed up funding them? If you're your sinking funds every month, then those should be funded in full by the time they're needed. So take a look at this example. Sinking funds, aka short-term savings, or a list of all your sinking funds. You set a goal amount and then divide that total by the number of months until it's due. Here in this graphic is a few examples of what your sinking funds might look like. So this person will be putting $676 a month into their sinking funds for future expenses. So these would be a line item on your budget. However, you pay that expense to the short-term savings account. It's still budgeted as a monthly bill, but you park it in your savings or your high-yield savings account until the funds are needed. When you're working towards goals like debt payoff and ramping up an emergency fund, that is a job for your excess cash flow, your leverage, meaning all the leverage you come up with beyond your bare bones budget, which should include those normal savings goals like the sinking funds and short-term savings. So with that in mind, maybe you don't need to speed up sinking funds at all. You just maintain your current habit and pace. So what if you started just doubling your car payment? It won't put so much stress on you like $1,200 would, but you'd still really speed up the time frame. Like let's take a look at what it would take to do that. It won't be paid off for your birthday, but you can use a debt payoff calculator to help you decide what time frame is right for you. So just plugging this in, I got this from calculator.net, I believe. Paying off this loan early is only going to save you about $41.77 in interest. Again, you've paid a bulk of this up front. Just doubling your payment, it will take you 8 months to pay it off. 7 months where you pay double, and then the final payment in month 8 of $261.77. So from the info that I have to go off of from your question, your total leverage is $1,200 a month. It's what I'm guessing. And so with $872 going to your auto loan for the next 8 months, that should still give you $328 a month to fund your next emergency fund goal or to fund a sinking fund goal. And over 8 months, that $300 some dollars adds up to $2,624 added into savings and a paid off car. So it's actually $610.23 more than that because of the small car payment in the 8th month. So this brings your total additional savings to your emergency fund of $3,234.23. So assuming you start in January and all you have is $1,200 a month, once you pay off the auto loan in August, September, October, November, December, you can take that full $1,200 in leverage for a total of $4,800 in additional savings after you've paid off the car. So take a look at this so you can kind of see, add that to your $3,000 starter emergency fund that you already have. Add the $3,234.23 for the year while you're paying off your car. And then that $4,800 that you save from September to the end of the year, that's $11,034.23. I could afford a pretty nice Christmas or vacation. So now, obviously, this would mean that you didn't touch your sinking funds all year. But even with just doubling your auto payment, it'll be paid off in August. There's still plenty of time in the year to save and have an amazing Christmas and be debt free and hit all your savings goal. So now that you see these numbers and you have more information, how do you feel now? Are you okay with paying off your car in August instead of in May? Or do you still really prefer just to have that auto loan out of your life? I hope this kind of process gives you a little bit more clarity in the option that's right for you. See, if I was to be a Dave Ramsey, if this was you were a Ramsey coaching client, it's absolutely not. Take your emergency fund down to $1,000 and pay off the car first. Like no ifs, ands, or buts, or wiggle room. That's his model. That's their plan. So, but here, we could go through a range of options and you can decide which one makes sense for you and your family. So lastly, I want to explain 2 more benefits that my one-on-one clients get and is something you'll never get from the internet alone. So first, we get super clear on your why, because financial freedom is so much more than just being debt-free with a pile of money. It's the life you can have now because you're debt-free with a pile of money. So we first establish your why and we revisit and build upon it every year. Like right now, this time of year is perfect. I revisit why with every one of my clients in January. Do we need to totally pivot or slightly adjust course, or are we still in alignment with the same goals and plan from the previous year? Second, once we have your solid plan for debt and savings, it's time to set up your personalized rewards program. I get excited about this in coaching. This is why I asked you how you celebrated achieving big goals, like setting a budget, setting up cash envelopes, and shucking away $3,000. Those are huge accomplishments and absolutely deserve to be celebrated, but intentionally. So when you set a goal, set a small reward for yourself to celebrate when you achieve that goal. I'd recommend the reward be in proportion to the goal, or keep the reward small at first and build up to bigger goals for things like your big debt-free reward. If you're spending in consumer debt $3,000 a month, you could set a $3,000 budget for your big debt-free reward. What do you want to treat yourself with for $3,000? Now that you've freed up $3,000 every month, that's back in your paycheck, that's back in your pocket, take 1 month worth of that money and do something nice for yourself. Treat yourself, and then jump right back into the next task or goal. So for example, you could have set a reward for yourself for each milestone of savings goals. And this is how I usually recommend breaking down the goals for saving, because we might do a few things. We might do the starter emergency fund and then pay off some debt. And then we might do the better emergency fund, get that up to 3 months, and then take care of a few other things. And then go back and fund it to a fully funded emergency fund of 6 months. So maybe your starter emergency fund goal is $3,000 or $3,150, because you get $150 to celebrate with a date night, dinner, and a movie, and that still leaves your $3,000 starter emergency fund. Better savings goal of, let's say, $9,000, so that's 3 months, and then $500. So your goal is $9,500. That's the $9,000 3-month emergency fund, and $500 for, say, a small weekend getaway. So then your next savings goal, 6 months. So let's double that and go to 1,000 plus your 6 months. That's 19,000 in total. So once you hit 19,000, you take $1,000 out and you treat yourself with your reward that you've already decided what you want to treat yourself with. And then you've still got your fully funded emergency fund of $18,000. So this is the fun and magical part of the coaching process. Like, I challenge that you're just intentional about your reward as you are about every other dollar that comes in. Since you should have a budget that has a job for every dollar before it hits your checking account. So your reward should be equally intentional, and then set a budget amount for that reward and specify what the reward actually is. Bonus points if you print out a vision board or put it on your phone as the background or screensaver. That way, every time you pick up your phone, you're reminded about what you're working so hard for. Is it a vacation? Where? Put the picture of the place or activities you want to do on your bathroom or on your phone, or maybe it's the latest, coolest tech toy. Whatever it is that's your next goal and your next reward for that goal, make it visible so you see it all the time. That'll let you confidently say no to the things that won't make you progress towards these goals and rewards. All right, folks, that is it for episode 6. If you would like to submit a question to be answered on a future episode, please fill out the anonymous Google form. The link is in the description below. Disclaimer time. Every situation is unique. There's never just one right answer to questions about personal finance. Everything I discuss in today's video is meant for education and informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Even today's scenario is missing very important details that I would also figure out and discuss with a client before giving them a range of options so that they're fully informed about their situation and their options so they decide what is right for them and their family. Thank you so much for tuning in. Since my channel is brand new, it really helped tremendously if you found today's episode helpful to give me a like and a subscribe. And remember, be bold and be well, friends.